act is amazing, humorous, and quick. Although this story doesn't necessarily justify its excessive fan service, and the third act is a bit unwieldy, The Flash is still an earnest and entertaining superhero film and one of the best efforts by DC in recent memory. Director Andy Muschietti's obvious love of the character anchors the many unique and refreshing action scenes and the twisty time travel plot without losing sight of Barry Allen's powerful emotional journey. This is my review of The Flash. I'm Michael H. Metcalf. Oh my God, hello, I love you, and I'm grateful. In a loose adaptation of the comic event Flashpoint that resembles a more abbreviated version of the source material, Barry is rushed to use his newfound ability to time travel to undo the most traumatic event of his life, the murder of his mother when he was a child. Use the rules of time travel to go back to the future. As a result, the timeline has skewed toward that shadow, giving rise to an alternate year 1985. Flash turns into a two-part story, a surprisingly entertaining true-to-life morality drama in which Barry must balance his selfish actions with the bereaved result of the amalgamation of two Barry Allen's Batmans and two versions of the DC movie continuity. It's surprising that he still manages to convey all of that because, for a movie called The Flash, there sure is a lot of Batman in it. It's especially great for presenting a containing story. The entire Flash origin without it being a regular origin story movie. Odds of at least two, Batman's two contrasting viewpoints are used to excellent effect in Accent Barry, where men are orphaned by violence as children. They have a lot in common and thus provide Barry with interesting philosophical food for thought. For his part, Ben Affleck feels more at home as Batman and Bruce Wayne than ever in Tim Burton's Batman movies, despite their immersion in the necessarily drawn-out and unrecognizable Batman action sequences and the many overt references to them. Business and sadness with just the right amount of sardonic humor. However, Michael Keaton's action scenes are the complete opposite, as we watch his Batman come alive and kick ass like never before, thanks to modern special effects. On the one hand, it is cool, like really cool, to see him fling bearings and glide around like a bat out of hell. But it is also overly cartoonish when we all know that Keaton is playing an aged Bruce with an understated performance too. Understated. At some points, let's get nuts. However, Keaton. His action scenes. He is 70 years old. As for the other major superhero in this movie, Supergirl, unfortunately, feels more like a plot device than a fully developed character, and it's sad to watch her role in the plot veer into disturbingly cliché territory. I'm Batman. It's almost as if the aging Palpatine flipped the CGI meddling on set. I'm Kara, and I'm going to help you, according to the rep. Given the character's narrow nature, Sasha Kaley shines as hard as she can while managing to make an impression with a depressed Kara Zor-El, who holds, "This is the first time we've seen Barry in a movie centered around him," and Muschietti makes sure to show off his signature powers in a really cool way, while Zack Snyder mostly delivers super-fast speed in slow motion. An understandable grudge against humanity. All of those characters played major roles, but this is the first time we've seen Barry in a movie. Once Flash gets into his bizarre sprinting pose and takes off, Muschietti makes you feel the G. And the intimacy with which Flash's abilities display makes us realize how beneficial it is to have these talents. You can appreciate how clever and creative Barry is by seeing how he handles obstacles like friction heat and what happens to your clothes when you run through solid objects. As you might think, this kind of speed is not as simple as it seems. The movie contains an interesting slow-motion speedster scene, which seems to have been seen frequently in other movies. Although this scene comes close, it's not quite as good as The King of the Mall, which I'd still claim is a Quicksilver scene from Data's future past. It's almost like a horror scene, and you can feel Muschietti playing up the horror of the scene while still making it very funny and silly by the time it's all over. But it's a great sequence that shows what Flash can do and how cunning he can be. It would have to be Barry Allen to be able to activate his powers. While the majority of the visual effects are excellent, one in particular does depict time travel, using a different concept than the others. I can fix everything and save your parents now. Credits to the movie's originality, but when the Chrono Bowl, which they refer to as in the movie, depicts people, They appear to be weird wax dummies with classic hair, as if the CGI rendering had stopped halfway through. Since so many important scenes take place there and require a lot of emotional investment from the audience, the distracting look undermines some key moments. The Flash deals with time travel, but nothing that really sets you up for a flashback to 2013's Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder. It's weird revisiting these events 10 years later, but it ultimately pays off to the flashback, as Barry begins to notice how much little things have changed in this timeline. This story feels like a farewell love letter to Snyder first, because it makes use of the many games the DCEU has introduced over the years. If this is the final chapter of the Senator's poem as we know it, then it's the appropriate swan song because it completes the circle. Yes, Aquamanda's Lost Kingdom is technically a bit of Snyder's poetry, but it follows what Gunn has described over the years and adds a new layer to this foundational film, expanding on Barry's superhero journey in a visceral way. Only James Gunn and Pierce later learn what the future of the DC Universe holds. The film culminates in one of the most ambitious and impractical third acts we've seen in a superhero movie in a long time. As far as canon is concerned, this takes place after the Sun universe ends, which is confusing, I know, but we'll just deal with him because he's Batman. The amount of chaos in both the action and the unfolding storytelling threatens to overwhelm you, which it does at times. But in the end, meeting Barry with his younger self, a version of him who isn't traumatized the way he was, helps us better understand what makes him special and where his eccentric personality comes from. That's a madman. That's a disaster in this movie. And it's all because Barry Allen is the most impressive part of The Flash. Barry isn't the most likable character in the beginning, but in the end, it's hard not to cheer for him as we witness how the loss changed his life in ways he didn't even realize. He excels at working to ensure no one else endures similar suffering as his, and we can see how that has improved him as a hero actor. It's My Face. So My Face Machete has a delightfully offbeat sense of humor, and Miller proves they have the comedy chops to deliver by taking the beats of familiar superheroes and turning them on their head. Ezra Miller excels in this dual role, offering two very different views of the same character. One of the movie's best scenes is Barry's emotional argument with his younger self. However, the superhero theatrics are all in service of a sensitive story about the anguish of grief and the strength it takes to achieve acceptance, and, in those moments, a vulnerability. Before you decide whether to watch The Flash, you should be informed that Ezra Miller has had a tumultuous and deeply worrying last few years. They've been through a lot, and it's quite concerning. Miller shines just as bright because this is the world where my mom lives, and I'm not going to lose her again. They have been charged with several major crimes, and as a result of one of these crimes, they are currently on probation. As a cinematic credit, Miller expressed regret for their behavior and stated that they were being treated for severe mental health concerns. You can learn more about this on IGN. I have given you my honest opinions about the film and the performance of my apologies, but I can only tell you that you have provided the current events in the current world. It is up to you to decide what to do with this knowledge. Do you know what the sign represents in terms of your values? Okay. To sum up, The Flash is an ambitious superhero film that successfully merges the stories of two Batmans and two Flashes into one cohesive whole. The superhero fan service is intense in this one, perhaps even too strong at times, but it never completely eclipses the story. Despite the third act's overpowering visual effects, Barry Allen's genuinely heartbreaking and sincere drama of bereavement features outstanding performances and a welcome change. Seriously keeps the dazzle on track and outperforms many of the DC Universe's most recent films, and I'm giving The Flash a score of 7 out of 10 because if this is the last stop on the Starterverse Express, it's a decent way to go. Are you ready? Let's begin. Thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned to see what we thought of Fast and Furious 6 and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. What are you doing, Barry? Our children will want to witness this. I wish you good luck. Don't forget to subscribe for more exclusive reviews.